Hey everybody, I got my friend Charlie the Chicken with me today, and we're going to talk you through the finer points of an overhand throw. Then we're going to give you a chance to practice some overhand throwing, and then after that play a game called Angry Birds where we can work on aiming at some targets and working at perfecting our overhand throw. So, when we start our overhand throwing, the first thing we want to talk about is the preparation for our overhand throw. So for this activity, I want you to know that my target's actually down over here. So when I'm preparing for my overhand throw, I want to be side facing. So I don't actually face my target, I'm going to face sideways. The second thing I want to know is that all my weight is actually on my back foot. So this foot here, since my target's down here, the foot furthest from the target's going to have all my weight on it. The next thing I want to talk about is your eyes. Obviously I'm looking at the video screen right now, but when I'm throwing, I want to be prepared and looking at my target with my eyes. What I tell my younger throwers often is to think about a T pose. So a letter T, capital T looks kind of like this. Now this is just for preparation. I'm pointing at my target with my empty hand, and I have my ball in my backhand. Again, all my weight's on my back foot, and my eyes are looking at my target. So once I'm prepared and I'm set to go in my T, I'm actually going to get out of my T and get back to this position here. Now I'm ready to throw. So again, that T pose is just for getting your hands in the right spots and ensuring you're side facing and all that stuff like that. So now I'm prepared to throw. So for the overhand throw, there's actually 5 points of movement that we need to think about when we're doing our overhand throw. The movement down and around, an opposite foot forward, a hip twist that follows, the rest of the body follows along, a weight transfer, and then release and point. So let's talk about down and around first of all. Down and around refers to our hand that's actually throwing. So we were in that T pose to get prepped, but now we're going to bring our hands back in, and that throwing hand is going to do a down and around kind of movement. Obviously I'm not going to be standing still, but it's doing that down and around the throw. It doesn't start from back here or up here, it starts in front of me and it goes down and around. That second step of an overhand throw, these are all kind of happening not so much right at the same time, but there's very little weighting in between each movement step, each part of the movement. So down and around is happening, we have an opposite foot step. So if I'm standing like this, my opposite foot from the ball would be this one. So I'm stepping with my opposite foot while doing that down and around movement. Again, opposite foot step and a down and around movement. The third step is talking about hips twisting and the rest of the body following suit. So I'm doing my step and my down and around, but my hips are still facing you guys, facing the camera, and I want them to end facing the target. So I'm going to twist my hips, and the rest of my body is all going to follow suit to match for my hips, so eventually I'll be facing that target when I do my hip twist. So I've got down and around, stepping and hip twisting. The next thing we need to think about is our weight. Our weight was all starting on the back of our body, and we want it to finish on the front of our body. So when we're doing all these other movements, we're shifting our weight from the back foot to the front foot as we are twisting our body around to provide the most force behind that throw. And the last thing we need to talk about is releasing and pointing. What I tell my learners is when they release the ball, it should be just in front of their head and they should be able to point at their target. So if I'm doing all those movements, down and around, opposite foot steps, twisting, I'm releasing in front of my head and I'm actually pointing at my target. So if I'm pointing at my target, I know I'm aiming in the right spot. And then if you were to point and drop your pointer, it should be pointing at your knee that's in front, because our throw is not just a side body movement, it actually is coming across the body. So I should be coming across and pointing at that opposite knee in the front when I'm done my throw. So again, one last time, all those steps together, down and around, opposite foot, twist the hips, shift your weight, release and point. Now that we've gone over the finer points of the overhand throw, I want you to go try it out. So what you're going to do now is find a spot either inside your house or outside, depending where you're working, and mark yourself a target, whether it's actually physically marking something or just visualizing with your eyes where your target's going to be. And you're going to take your balls, whether it's balls or bean bags or rolled up socks or a stuffed animal or other things that you might be throwing that are safe to throw inside your house or outside your house, and you're going to go and try to hit that target. What I suggest to do first of all is get nice and close to that target and really try to aim and hit that target from close range. Maybe give yourself 5 or 10 throws from up close, and then take a few steps back and try 5 or 10 throws from a little bit further. And once you think you really got this figured out, what we'd like you to do is send us a quick little video clip of you doing a couple overhand throws and really thinking about the 5 things I mentioned in my previous video: the down and around movement, the opposite foot stepping, the hip twist that follows through with the rest of the body, that weight transfer, and the release and point. And send us a video clip of you doing your very best attempt at some overhand throwing. So here's what my Angry Bird setup looks like. I have a hula hoop marking my throwing spot, and I have 3 beanbags that are going to serve as my Angry Birds, and those are what I'll be throwing at my targets using the overhand throw that we practiced earlier on. And you can see I've got my target set up. There's 5 bowling pins down there with pig faces. Don't panic if you don't have pig faces. I just wanted to make things a little more authentic. Just as long as you know what the targets are that you're aiming for. It could be a toy, it could be a stuffed animal, it could be bowling pins if you have bowling pins. As long as you know what your targets are, that works just fine. I have 5 targets. Realistically, 3 or 4 targets is fine too, but the more the better for your throws. Again, try to be creative on your setup. You can see I have my targets set up in different heights, different distances, and some of them are shielded a little bit by some of the game, and it's your job to try to knock over all those targets. So depending on what kind of challenge you want for yourself, you can try it one way and then reset up another way afterwards, and your challenge is to knock over all those targets with the fewest Angry Birds you've got. So now we're all set for our game of Angry Birds. Again, you're going to throw your Angry Birds, whether it be beanbags, or if it's a ball of socks, or a stuffed animal, or a ball outside if you have some tennis balls or small balls you can toss around. You're going to toss your Angry Birds with the overhand throw we worked on and try to knock over as many of those pigs as you can. And your goal in an ideal situation would be to knock over all your targets with just one turn. So we're going to line up and we're going to give a few tosses. So my first throw, here we go, overhand throw. Again, just like the real game of Angry Birds that you play, if you hit some of the environment around the targets and happen to knock over one of the pigs by knocking over something else, that's totally cool. Take another turn. So I still have 2 targets left to hit, and I have 1 Angry Bird left to throw. So that's how the game of Angry Birds works. Again, your challenge is to try to knock over all the targets with the fewest Angry Birds thrown as possible. Make sure you're creative out there and make sure you make a really unique Angry Birds setup for yourself, and maybe try changing up and try a few different ways to set up your targets to challenge your throwing skills. Good luck out there.